Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to make a Heart Hugs and Kisses baby blanket, which measures 36 by 36. This easy to do pattern uses 3 different colored fabrics. You have one, a lighter one, a mid-tone, and a darker one. I'm going to mix things up a little bit today and use the blue as a background and then use these as our hearts and our hugs and kisses symbols. This blanket essentially uses 4 different blocks. There's HSTs, flying geese, plain blocks, and also a stitch and flip, also known as a snowball type block. So to begin with, what we're going to do is we're going to do the HSTs. All the measurements for the blocks and fabric will be included in the description. So I'm just going to run through what I'm going to be doing to build this quilt. We're going to take the 4.5-inch squares, and I've got a background against one of the heart fabrics. These will be the HSTs. You'll notice what I've done is I've actually drawn on both sides of the background fabric, and the reason being is I just learned a new technique for increasing the precision of doing HSTs, and it also stops the fabric from moving a lot. So what we're going to do is on this line, on the darker one, there's this great glue. It's an Elmer's Children's glue. It's washable, but you want to use the clear one because if you need to take it out, it's not going to show in the fabric. It doesn't stain, it doesn't mark, and it comes out in the laundry. So with the right side of the fabric facing up, we're actually going to put dots of glue right on this line. The line I've used is, I used a friction pen. You can use a pencil, whatever your drawing tool or marking tool that you prefer. So just some random drops, about 1/8 of an inch apart. Now we're going to place the other fabric right sides together and just quickly pat this down with your finger. If you want to make sure that this doesn't move at all, you can also run it through the iron, and that will help set the glue more permanently. I find if you just let it sit for a few minutes, it does that on its own. If you make a mistake, you can lift it, put more glue on, and do it again. And then what I'm going to do is just pop a couple pins in. So one on each side. And then when I take this to the sewing machine, I'm actually going to run the end of my presser foot against this line and stitching along here. Then I'll flip it around and again on this edge and down here. And this will give me 1/4 of an inch from the center line. Once these are done, we'll take them over to the iron. By pressing it, it'll set the seams, and then we can cut this apart and we'll have 2 HSTs. In total we need 6, so that is 3 different fabric combinations. So let me take care of that and I'll be right back. Okay, I hope you can see this. I pressed it so my line in the center is now gone. Just cutting these apart. So next what we do is we actually line up the ruler corner to corner parallel to the stitches that were made. I also will take the 1/4 inch mark and actually place it right on my stitches, and then that is a good second indication that you've got it lined up properly. So now I'm just going to slowly cut these apart, and just like that we have a 1/2 square triangle. So I'm going to cut the rest of these apart. Again, it's just putting the ruler down. Oops. You want to handle these a little bit carefully because they are stretchy if they're moved around too much, because it's that good old bias sewing again. There we go. I think I need a new blade. Okay, so again we open this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press these to the dark side, and then from there these will get trimmed down to 3.5 inches. So I'm just going to go press these and then I'll be right back. Okay, I've got all the HSTs pressed open, and next we need to square them up. I pulled out my rotating mat. If you don't have one, if you can cut them on a smaller mat, just physically move the mat to turn it around. I also move the block, so it's totally up to you. You'll see that when we started, the fabric was 4.5. Now it's at about 4.25 inches. So we've lost about 1/4 inch, almost 1/2 inch, making the HSTs. So next, we need to square them up. I put corner to corner on the 45 just to show you how it's lining up. I'll use the 45 degree on my ruler as well. What we're wanting to do is take the 45 degree angle line on your ruler and line it up on the seam. We're aiming for a 3.5 inch finished square. So what I do is I actually make this one on the smaller side. So just trim here and here. And then I will turn this around and slide the ruler down. And what I want to do is line this up with 3.5 inches. So there we go. Here, and the tips are lined up on the 3.5, and then good pressure holding it down, and then we're going to trim it. And again, we're doing this on the bias, so you want to take your time and not cut them too quickly, or else you'll start distorting your fabric. So these are the little bits that are left over, not a huge amount of weight. So that's one down. So I'm going to go ahead and trim the rest, and then we'll have our 1/2 square triangles. Okay, now that we've got all our HSTs done, we're going to do 2 flying geese. One is going to have our background fabric with 2 of the lighter heart fabric, and one is going to have the heart fabric with 2 of the background fabric. The larger pieces of fabric for the flying geese are 3.5 by 6.5, and then the wings of the geese are actually on 3.5 square pieces. So if you haven't done one before, just to remind you of how to do them, what you do is you line up and you draw a line from corner to corner. You sew that from the, you can't see that. You sew from this tip to the outer, then you fold this back, you double check it, and you trim off the extra fabric and you press this over. Once that's done, then you do the other wing, where again you lay this down corner to corner, you draw a line, and you're actually going to be sewing over top of the tip of the previous one. Then you flip it over. Once you're happy with it, then you trim off the excess, and you've got one goose done. Again, the best method to do this is to draw from corner to corner, and I like my friction pens. So lightly, and this is going to be our stitching line. And facing the same direction, I'm actually going to draw it on the other side as well, because that's actually going to be our glue line to give it a little bit more stability. So there we go. So we want this to go like this. So we're going to stitch here, and then this will flip over to the corner like that. So what I'm going to do is place this where I want it to be. Actually, let's put the glue on. And because this is the part here, once it's sewn down like this, this is the part that's gonna be showing the flying part. So this part will actually get cut off. So you're safe to put the glue on that side. And sorry if I'm flipping this around a lot. I just have to also keep it clear in my mind, because it's easy to get things mixed up. So we don't want it to overhang at all. I'm just making sure everything matches up. And again, because this glue will not be seen once it dries, I do encourage you to test it on your fabric though, just to make sure. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll sew along here, and I will put a couple pins in just to make sure that it doesn't move on me. And when you sew this, you want to be about one thread over from here, and that kind of takes up the fold of the fabric when it goes over, because that takes up extra space. Some people call it a scant 1/4 inch. We're not doing a 1/4 inch, but a scant stitching line. So that's what we're gonna do. So let me do that and I'll be right back. So I don't know if you can see, it's just right there, just tugging the line. This I pulled over and it does fit. So what I'm gonna do is take it over to the iron and just give it a quick pressing, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have the one wing pressed open over to the position. So now again, we're going to take our ruler. And I press that really well. It's got starch on it, so it's not going to open, but I will carefully trim this. I'm lining up my 1/4 inch on the stitching line. I'm making sure none of the fabric here is caught. I'm going to trim this. This will be a nice bit of extra fabric you can use for something else. This goes back over. And now we're ready to do the other side. So this is what it'll look like. So what we're gonna do is it'll get placed like this. So same process. On the right side, I'm gonna just tack it with some glue. I'm wondering if any of you have used this glue before. If you have, what are your thoughts? I'm just curious. I'm finding it actually works better than the basting glue I had bought. So I'm quite happy to do something where I can save a few dollars and also use something that's readily available. Okay, so that's down. So I'll throw a couple pins in. Again, I'll be stitching on the right hand side of my drawn line, and then this will end up flipping up and over and this will get trimmed off. So I'm gonna finish this one up, and then I'm also gonna go ahead and do the opposite one, and then I'll be right back. So there we go, two beautiful flying geese. They're both opposite. The way you can check is just spin them around and you see the centers are different. So the last block we need to make are our snowball ones. And what we're going to be using are our brights that we're going to be using for the X's and O blocks. So these are all cut to 3.5 inches. And then we have these smaller cornerstone fabric, and you need 2 per 3.5 to make these work. So again, what we're doing is we're drawing from corner to corner, and that will get stitched on here. So when it's all sewn and flipped over, it'll look like that. And then we'll be doing another one on the opposite and stitching along here, and then this will get folded over. Actually, it needs to be right side together, and that's what it'll look like. So we'll be making 8 with the background fabric, and the rest will have our light-hearted fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and do these. It'll take me a while, so I'll be back when they're done. So I thought I'd just go ahead and show you what this looks like before it gets stitched. You know you're on the right track when they're on opposite sides. If you are doing any fabric that has a direction to it, meaning things have to be the right way up, you might want to just give a lot of thought on how you're placing your fabric before you sew it. So what's going to happen here, it's like the others, we're going to stitch from corner to corner, just on the right hand side of where it's going to flip over. So you can get these set up so that you can piece stitch them, because what you do is you just go along and you do all the ones going on this way, cut your thread, then turn them around, and then continue doing all the ones on this direction. So again, on the corners pointing out, that is the side where the thread's going to be. And then once they're stitched, these get flipped over into the corner like this, and that's what they'll look like. And this extra fabric again will be lining up 1/4 inch, cutting here, and then this part will end up in your use later pile or pass on to somebody else, or however else you want to use it. So I've got a few of these to do, so let me get on it. So the one colorway, I've done all the stitching, so I've checked them all. So again, it's cutting them, and this is where it's important to make sure you're cutting on the correct side of the ruler. So this will end up getting folded over like that, and then I'll show you the other side. And there we go. So we're going to be doing 4 like this, and then we'll be doing the rest in this colorway. So this is the fabric facing the wrong way up, but just to show you what it looks like. So these will get stitched like that for the rest of the hearts, hugs and kisses blocks. So I will continue work on that, and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, just showing you that I've got all of these. Larger, so I will square it up. It makes it easier just putting them all together. Here we are. I have all the blocks laid out, showing you it's ready for assembly. So this is what it looks like. It's really hard to describe how it'll look with the colors when you're doing it bit by bit. So there will be an extra 2 rows of background on the top and bottom, and then on each side. It's up to you whether you want to add more or not. So for assembly on this, what I personally like to do it in blocks. So I would do these 4 as a 4 patch, then move on to this as a 4 patch, etc., etc. Or another way you can do it is do it in rows this way, and then you want to get your seams. So this row they'd be pointing this way down, this they'd be going up, down, up, down, up, down, like a wave. Makes it so much easier when you can nest your seams. I really look forward to having this done, and also getting feedback on how you found this pattern, whether there's anything I can be explaining a little bit better. So from here, I will start the assembly process and show you as I move along. Here's a trick for you. Once you piece together one column, what I do is I put another fabric that has nothing to do with what I'm working on through the machine, and I use that as a divider, so when I finish string piecing all my pairs together, I know it's the end of a row. So I have a little stack here of scrap fabric from other projects, and that's what I use it for. So it'll help you keep organized, or it helps me. A suggestion only, so let me know how you make out. First two columns are sewn together. Just wanted to show you about how well these are matching here. And what you want to do is when you're putting pieces together where they cross over in critical points is wherever, this would be a critical point right here where the seams intersect. So what you want to do is put a pin in here and make sure when it goes through to the other side that it's landing where it needs to. And I did actually put a pin here before I ran it through the sewing machine just to make sure the fabric didn't move. And yes, I'm guilty of not pinning every block that I sew together. I'm kind of, I like to use my seam ripper a little bit too much sometimes. So next I will sew these together, the next two and the final two. Then I'll do some pressing, and then I'll start joining those together into 4 blocks, and it's coming together very quickly. Just piecing this together and showing you, this hasn't been pressed yet, but sometimes things don't line up the way we plan them to. So I was so busy showing you how to do it that I messed up myself. So I've made a new block with a corner to corner, and I'm going to have to use my stitch ripper, also known as jack, to take this block out and replace it. And this one will line up properly. I've measured it, so just showing you these things happen to everybody. So be patient, take your time, and redo if you really aren't happy with what you see. So here we go. The borders are all done. It's up on my design board, so it's a little bit dark in here. Sorry about that. Not sure when I will get to quilting this, but if I do, I'll post a video. Most likely will be free motion with some hearts or something like that. If anyone has any ideas, please leave them in the comments below. I do have a note on the left hand side of the screen I always keep pinned up on my design board to make a label. That's so important, to date and put your signature to the work that you do. So there we go. Another project. Sew with, to be, and play safe. Take care. Bye now.